Hi and welcome everyone for the SUSE QE Tools Workshop this week. The topic for today will be Tumbleweed workflows focused on openQA. Will present something here myself, and I'm happy that Dimstar, Dominic Leuenberger, is here to to give the expert opinion on that, like the first-hand report in case there's anything to add or something that I missed or maybe even got wrong. The first thing that I would like to do is confirm you can see my screen with the shared browser, I assume.
Yes.
Cool, thank you. Now I will maybe only stay in the browser. Let's see how far we can get. Let's start with what do we want to reach? So basically, what the goal is that we want to reach for Tumbleweed is, well, to have a new snapshot of Tumbleweed released, often in a stable manner. So taking a look in the Tumbleweed ISO download directory, if someone wants to install a freshly new Tumbleweed system, then here you go and you see all the different kind of variants of media for x86-64 and i686, and we have a current, which is a link to the most recent snapshot. And what you can see here in the name is when it says 2021-05-24. So that is the date snapshot from snapshot that started on 24th of May, just some days ago. Of course, for existing installations, you would likely conduct an upgrade from repository, so you would get the data from here, and then correspondingly for the ports, you would have variants in other folders. Let me check. There's a noisy microphone from someone. Okay, I will monitor that after. Now, the question is how do new media or how do new repositories be published? And now I'm jumping to the beginning, and the beginning is that we have a project in OBS. So in OBS, we have openSUSE Factory. And what is done within openSUSE Factory, where we have this more than 14,000 source packages, we built the complete product in various repositories. You see images here local, so this is where the main action happens. And you have ports. And then when we want to create a new Tumbleweed snapshot, what is done is that a snapshot is created, and this goes into this, or this is visible in this repository to have a snapshot of this always recurring and continuous integration of new packages and builds of packages that happen. As soon as a snapshot is built, then that will trigger according tests on openQA. And for this, I can also show you a nice overview. There's a factory dashboard, which shows a high-level overview of these different stages. Felix, go on.
Oli, can we go a bit more into details later on how how the openQA tests are triggered?
Yes, I will show that. Just in the next step. I want to first show that here we can see the current building status of the repository and the images. And as soon as this is done, then this is a point where we can consider going that step from a new source snapshot to this stage, which is called testing. And if you want to go a little bit more into detail, like, so what is the component that takes a look here for any new data? That is the in openSUSE release tools on GitHub, the component is called toTestManager. So you have one component here, toTestManager. If you want to look at that fancy and maybe a bit sarcastic picture, then you see where would toTestManager show up? I guess when it here says staging tools and then openQA and
actually toTestManager would be after that graphic.
Yeah, right. So when from factory we want to trigger and test a new snapshot, then toTestManager comes into play. Currently, toTestManager is running on a host that is called botmaster SUSE. Let's go to the main page. And what you see here is many various components. I will just look for TTM. And you find that there are different instances for factory, as well as for the ports, as well as for leap, where the same approach is taken for the different leap versions. So let's go into the main interesting instance for x86-64, which is TTM factory. We can see that it's triggered by a timer, so this is like recurrently triggered. And we can take a look here on the output. We see that it passed, and if we click here, then we see both the command line. So you see here, this is something that you can also try on your own. There's a dry run mode. You can do the same and see what it would do. Here we test toTestManager with the openSUSE factory configuration, and then the output basically is these two lines, which is in that case that the latest snapshot that is ready for testing, which is the one from 24th of May, is already publishing, and there is no change in snapshot version. So this is the case where the bot okay. Sorry if that wasn't clear. You should be able to see me in my webcam, and you can also see my shared browser screen in the other window. So you can click there. Make sure to click on this one thumbnail which shows the shared browser view. Okay. Does that work? I guess for some it works.
Yes, for me it does.
Yeah. Sorry. I think what I did there is I'm sharing two instances in Jitsi. So I think if you don't click, then it switches the focus automatically when I'm talking, which is my webcam me and not the screen sharing me. Okay. Right. So here we see the output of the bot in the case when nothing is to be done. In the job history, I couldn't now find an example right now, but in other cases where we would see that the bot is telling something like where we are waiting for a new build to be ready for testing, or in particular, and this is where it becomes interesting for openQA then, is when it looks at the current test results. So let's do that now manually. We can follow this link. Of course, we can just also follow the main openQA index page to reach the same. But what you see here is the test overview page of the latest Tumbleweed snapshot in the main production job group. There are other job groups which are ignored, for example, development, where people can test out changes until they're deemed to be stable. And what we see is that we have roughly 300 test scenarios in here. And also, to be realistic, it's not that all test scenarios would pass. That would be nice. And Dominic, maybe you can confirm. We had the cases where everything was not failing, right? I think the last case maybe like 2 years ago.
Yes, but then we also had below 200 tests, and it was a really short period. I mean, any single small package where we consider, well, we have seen it failing, but sometimes it's a test failing, sometimes it's really the product, and it's up to us to decide if we still want to release or not.
Right. So the point is, you same as we can expect build failures for any of 20,000 packages, there will likely also be some component which is seen as not necessarily critical, which we just have to accept to keep everything rolling. So I will introduce you to the approach, like, so how can still an automatically supported decision process be used, even though not all tests would pass? Because of course the implementation would be simpler to say, as soon as all the tests pass, then really release a snapshot. If that would be the case, then Test Manager actually just does that. Assume all tests are passed, then what Test Manager will do is will trigger the release from the snapshot from OBS into the download directory, which I showed you in before. And then what we will also see on the main job group page here is that we will end up with this nice tag saying published, which TTM, which is the Test Manager, which I showed you before, will write. So, but what if tests do not all pass? Well, this is using all these openQA features to review and label failures. And this is visible if I click on the to-do page, in the to-do checkbox, and take a look at that as a filter. Then basically Test Manager takes a look at an equivalent view and says, well, as long as there are failures showing up on that page, I will not release a snapshot. Okay? And so the first step that needs to be reached is that in all these cases where we see a job showing up with failed, regardless if there's a plain comment or not, as soon as there is not a proper label from the point of openQA, that means either an understood ticket reference or a Bugzilla reference, that snapshot for sure will not be released.
There's one exception.
And with the one exception of saying, yes, you can still say that one single test failure today, as is right now, the current job can be skipped, right? So you can tell the bot to say, ignore that specific failure, even if I don't have a bug reference, correct?
Correct, yes.
Right. So if you take a look here, then we see like, okay, there had been a comment, but this was one like informational comment from the openQA investigate jobs. It doesn't tell if that is a critical issue that should block the release or not. Because that snapshot actually was already released, I assume that this is a retriggered job, and the last case that was evaluated when the bot decided to release was likely this job here, the precursor one. And if we take a look here, then let's see what we will find. What we see is that Dimster wrote a comment and referenced not only a single ticket, but multiple tickets. And in this case, we mark the job with a proper label. This is why we also see this neat flash icons showing up. And the flash commonly means a test issue and not a product issue. For comparison, if there's a bug icon, then this is a product issue. But this is not enough, because just marking a test failure with a ticket reference doesn't tell the bot, okay, we know that this is an issue, but is it an issue for which we want to block the release of Tumbleweed or not? And for that, the bot remembers if previously it was informed that an issue is to be ignored or not. And in that case, these tickets had been, I assume they had been told to the bot to say, like, yeah, if you happen to find these test issues, then, well, these should not block the release of a snapshot, right? So this is why we have the bug label, and then afterwards the snapshot was released. Let's see if I can find examples, or Dominic, maybe you do remember from that snapshot where we have maybe a new bug or a new ticket with a comment from TTM where you would tell, or some other release engineers would tell the bot to say, yeah, you can ignore that.
I don't think there was something new in 24 that showed up.
Yeah.
There was just bugs removed, which is actually why I had a manual comment in there, because there was one bug less in it already.
Yeah. Anyway, here still we can see one example where, well, this ticket, this comment is a takeover from a previous job. If we take a look into that older snapshot, which is actually already from April, then we can see this case. So what Fabian Vogt did here is he marked the test's failure, the reason for failure, why this test scenario failed, with a bug reference. And he told the to-test manager bot that if we reference that bug, then you can ignore it for release criteria. Meaning, when we use that as a label and there are no other issues left, then the snapshot will be released. Okay? Any questions regarding that? Because I think this is crucial. Anton, raise your hand.
Yeah, I have a question. So I noticed that in some jobs, you are marking not just a job, but you are like assigning certain ticket to certain module. Is this feature somehow technically used by, I don't know, TTM or in openQA? Because in my understanding before this, I was thinking that, yeah, openQA cannot distinguish that this ticket is for this module and this one is for other.
Correct. So what we do here is it's just a convention of using a rather plain markdown list to say we have multiple failed modules, and this is why we reference a multiple ticket reference with this text, but it doesn't have any impact on neither openQA, how that handles it, nor to test manager.
So it's just for human readability.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Who should be responsible to comment the reasons for the failures? The test owner or the release manager?
Well, I would say that in the end, the openSUSE Tumbleweed release managers are responsible that the comments appear, because they are responsible for making sure that we release Tumbleweed, right? And that needs to be done by telling the bot what are the specific criteria for releasing. The openQA is set up in a way that, well, anybody can write a comment, so everybody can help. And in some cases, I mean, we already have seen that there are multiple persons commenting. Yeah, so it's not just a single person that does that. And this is how this process was also designed so that people can collaborate. Yeah, I mean, multiple persons can take a look on that list. You just check for the to-do list and you see, is there anything left? And yes, if there is something left, then any person can go there and first investigate the failure and provide a ticket reference. And then second, the task would be to decide who would be, which issue is ignorable or not. So again, in the end, responsible are the release managers. Who can help there is basically everybody that has expertise to review the test failures and understand product issues. Phoenix.
Only help me to rule out one confusion point here. You stated before that if a bug reference is there for a certain failure, the release of Tumbleweed will not be blocked because it considers this as solved. But for instance, I just filed a bug for Builder Botman, but the issue is about investigating and finding a solution for it. So from my understanding, just filing a bug in progress makes the snapshot being released, but doesn't give a statement if this failure is actually a product failure or a test failure or something different. So by filing a bug in progress, I would release potentially a faulty version of one of the packages. Right?
So first, I think there is not really, regarding Tumbleweed, there is not really a distinction if something is a progress ticket or a bug in Bugzilla. That doesn't make a difference regarding the releasability. Okay. And the second thing is that only by telling the bot if certain issues marked by links to these issues are ignorable, only then they will be ignored. So that always needs this comment at ttm ignore by someone next to the link. Without that, there would just be the ticket reference, which would help, of course, to track the issue, but that doesn't tell the bot that it can be ignored.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Dominic, did I miss something up to this point, or did something explain wrong?
No, I think it's okay. Maybe what I would like to stress is that the decision to ignore or not ignore should not be from anybody. So there's no permission model on openQA and TTM. It basically accepts the comment from everybody. And we trust for people not to abuse that. So we have seen sometimes a failure looking really, really harmless. And when you ignore it, pretty much everything would fall over. So ignoring has to be taken with the precaution.
Right, yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. This is what I mean when, in the end, you as release manager are responsible, but especially for investigating the failure and providing a bug reference or a label, that is, I would say, more or less harmless and appreciated, right?
Absolutely, that's appreciated. Then I already have some information to base my decision upon.
Yeah, Anton.
What about scenarios like when you set this ignore tag, then this issue is fixed? So there is like a big list of these tickets which are meant to be ignored, and not all of them are still valid. And also another scenario when ticket was closed, but then it was reopened and the issue maybe is even bigger or it's like changed a little bit. So currently there is no flows which will cover this, right?
As far as I know, the state of the linked ticket doesn't have any influence on releasability, okay? So as long as there is a bug marked, regardless if it's set to resolved fixed, verified fixed, or opened or reopened, as long as there's a test failure, yeah, only that matters. Did I understand you right?
Yes, but it was more like not a question, but yet just a statement that there is like a gap in process in this regard, because
okay, yeah, so I see it covered the following way, that what we have is the openQA review tool, which you might know from reports like the following. Yeah, and regardless if people use this report or not, what openQA review also does, it cross-checks the status of tickets. So for example, here there is closed bugs, and take a look here. There are tickets which are referenced in soft failures. So the soft fail still happens in the tests, but the tickets are set to verified or resolved. So this is why it's here in particular in red, it's flagging these issues, because despite of having the ticket marked as closed, well, the test still fails. So something needs to be done. Either the test needs to be updated to reference a new ticket, or the bug condition detection is incorrect, or the bug fix never reached the product, which often is a likely cause that there might be a submission still pending or stuck, or actually only to part of the affected products, but not all. And then also openQA review will provide these reminder comments within Bugzilla issues as well as progress issues for tickets which are still referenced in current failing tests where no action had been seen in the ticket for longer. Anton, again?
Yeah, just probably direct question to Dominic, if he remembers something when such scenario backfire. I mean, like when the ticket was ignored, but later and snapshot was published, and later it becomes like a big disaster because it was not taken into account that the issue was changed a little bit under the hood.
No, this case we haven't seen yet. Especially also because if it ever came to succeed and then comes back, there's a gap when openQA decides not to forward a ticket anymore. So it is not always doing that. What we have seen, of course, is that we miscategorized the bug and ignored it, even though it was a bit more critical than was first expected.
Okay,
so far the errors were on your human side always.
Right. So how would the process be, or what would happen in these cases where you say like, yeah, okay, this looks like just a, sporadic needle mismatch, maybe not a big thing, and you mark it, regardless if it's a Bugzilla ticket or progress ticket, as ignorable, and then what happens?
If I marked it ignorable and there was nothing else left, to test manager would happily release it, and then we hear the users complaining that we missed something. And of course, there's no way back out than trying to get a fix out as soon as possible.
Right, and then regardless of the state, I mean, yeah, the user feedback or the beta testers feedback in that case would make sure that the according linked bug would be treated with enough priority, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Right. Other hand raises, Marita, yeah.
Yeah, just to confirm, you said, Dominic, you said you have to get a fix out. That actually means that you fix something, go through the entire process, and then release the next snapshot, right? That's what you mean by getting a fix out.
That's the optimal case. We have special cases as well where we sort of do manual testing only, sort of quick maintenance, and do it in the update channel in the end without doing a full snapshot rebuild.
But then I thought you don't do something like maintenance update. Is this?
No, it's not maintenance updates. It's really just a repository add-on where we can do quick fixes. Currently, for example, there is a Kubernetes in there.
Okay.
Just because there has been a fix out and we are currently blocked on building a new snapshot. And Kubernetes currently breaks running clusters, so we decided to circumvent the process and release a quick fix for that.
Okay, just wanted to make this sure because I had this question recently, maintenance updates of Tumbleweed, but actually this does not really exist. So we have snapshots and we have quick fixes, right?
Right, it's just snapshot and the repository add-on that's usually empty, which does not have any QA or any manual, basically any special process on it. It's just humans doing stuff there, which they shouldn't do.
Right. So here we can see the content of the update repository for x86 64, where we have mainly currently the Kubernetes update and the test update packages. But for something like Leap or SLE, we would see a huge list of multiple versions of packages that all receive maintenance updates time over time. Rita?
Okay, thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, good. Right. So two more details I would like to cover. So the first thing is, do we need to always find labels for all the things where tests do not pass? And of course, we have the cases of soft fails here as well. And this is where I would say having a soft fail is most often less work to track known issues than relying on this label carryover, or even worse, by a human repeatedly making sure that we know the same ignorable issues happen in other cases. So all the soft fails means we have less work here, but behind each of these there's at least one known issue, which of course also are acceptable in a way that we will still release a Tumbleweed snapshot if any of these tests soft fail, because we have seen the issue already in before, so it was decided already in an earlier step if something like this is acceptable. So just one example here. So we have a bug in Just virtualization, and I'm also not caring about the details here. The point is just that here, Anton, also what you mentioned, soft fails are a better way to track known issues, especially on the module level, because very distinct we know where issues are. And also, depending on how the test developers introduce the soft failure detection, that works across all instances where test code is used and all products and all versions. So this is always a good alternative to consider. Yeah, and then one more thing in the yeah, Dominic, sir.
Yeah, just want to mention there that please mention keep soft fails to a minimum as possible, because they're implicit ignorable by TTM. So TTM does not look if there's any soft fail, or if the count goes up from 0 to 200, it will still publish in any case.
Right. So yeah, so one thing I would like to mention, if we go back to the dashboard, yeah, clean this up. So what we see behind these links here is published is the published repository. Testing is the openQA test overview with a summary here. So this is what we have just been looking at, the failed ones and the 45 soft failed ones and the 200 repassed. Then there's source, which is the main product where we start from. And then we have, so what is a good link to the staging dashboard? Maybe
There's
that.
none here.
Yeah, but I can
Well,
also
you
go
can
back
get
here.
from there, yes.
Yeah. So I go here, and then there's staging. And staging, well, this is the staging step. So this is in the middle between creating a submission. Oh, I need to be looked in. Creating a submission and having a submission accepted into openSUSE Factory. And that one also, of course, involves openQA testing. So for the people that haven't seen it, I'd like to show it. All this still loading. What you see there, what you will see there is an overview of staging projects. There are letter projects and there are ADI projects depending on the, let's say, the criticality of the package, depending on dependencies and the ring level where it's in. And when we go into staging A as one of these projects, then we see various checks which are done by openQA bots, for example, but also by openQA tests. So here you see there's a not so small list of openQA scenarios, and these scenarios are used for testing every single submission into staging projects. And this is less in the number of test scenarios that we have per project, but quite big in the overall number of test runs that we do, because as you can see, we do that for all the, at least for all the lettered staging projects where we have all the individual submissions, for example, kernel, GNOME, KDE. And if you go down the list, then we find, okay, for example, here, staging C and staging E, where we say like, okay, maybe these fail to build or fail to install. And here we see that these, for example, they fail in an openQA test scenario. So just trying to make a quick guess, are these openQA test failures pointing us to problems in the submission, or are they in the test? So I see cube ADM failing. Now I wonder, is there anything like having cube in the name? Not directly, but well, that includes the kernel and systemd. So yeah, maybe that is really a problem that is observable in openQA. Now that one fails in OpenOffice. That historically that is a case of a less stable module. Now this looks interesting. I haven't seen that in before. The openQA test expects that we have a typing test, like where we type, and instead it shows a user interface selection dialog. So I assume that in that case, the performance plays a role where we try to press a hotkey and then we end up in the wrong screen. Maybe not related to the submissions, but well, who knows? Statistics would tell if we would reconduct these tests. However, what I want to say is that openQA is involved here. So this is one example where we have the text mode scenario, which runs for 42 minutes, complete installation, and many important test modules showing basic functionality for every single of these submissions in a staging project. And in staging, the rules are much more strict, so that the staging projects rely on having passing tests here. So there we don't have that way to tell that issue is ignorable or this one. So here we really want to ensure that all the tests are fine, and then the staging project is acceptable, and only then the according submissions will be accepted into factory and considered as candidates for the next Tumbleweed snapshot. So something more to add here. Do you guys have any question regarding the difference in process versus other products or maintenance tests or SLE testing? What is two-test manager bot?
Perhaps you could also go a little bit into the details of leap testing.
Leap testing?
Yeah, leap. So far we only talked about Tumbleweed.
Yeah. Right, I will do that. And Julie, you raised your hand?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I have a question. Our test is going to install a Tumbleweed over PXE, but I found the install media repo is not available. I type the path in the chat box. A minute.
Okay. Yeah. Do that and we can check the path.
How can I make it available?
Right. So what you reference there is the repository used for testing the current Tumbleweed snapshot. And that one is only accessible within the internal openQA OpenSUSE.org network, including the internal access to the OBS instance. I don't think that the snapshots are accessible like this. Only released snapshots would be accessible. Am I right?
You mean the snapshot under test?
The snapshot under test, yes.
It is accessible from outside through openQA. So openQA basically publishes one snapshot in the assets and so on. It's not browsable though.
Yeah, I think maybe not the repository, but only the like ISO.
No, the repository is also there.
Oh, okay.
It's in assets, repo, OpenSUSE, blah, blah, blah. It's a huge long text. And of course, we have GRU cleaning it up very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that it's not browsable sometimes bring issues. I mean, like, I need to check something if it exists in this repo. Is there any way how I can do it except via HTTP?
You can check on OBS if the package is included in the snapshot repo itself. So, like a project show OpenSUSE factory that includes all the source packages. Okay. Or
And then I will go to snapshots, right? Because I need to check like some certain snapshot and what the package is there available or not. So how I can do it?
Okay, so I don't know a convenient way to browse that from the outside. If it's for released packages, like the latest released one, then of course that's...
No. I mean like exactly this one, which is not browsable.
Okay.
But yeah, Dominic, do you have any hints how to do it? Or
no, what I usually do if I have to diagnose something around packaging is I just add the repository from openQA on my machine and inspect it with zipper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. So that is something what you can do. Let's pick up one openQA
and then next question, is this restriction to not have HTTP access there, is it something for security reasons, or maybe we can just add it for simplicity?
Well, I could think of two reasons. One reason would be that openQA doesn't provide the capability to load balance the access there, and you could become quickly overloaded when too many instances access that from external network, because we don't have the mean to properly prioritize the traffic based on if it's coming from a worker or a manual access. So it would make the web UI slow, and it could actually also impact the tests to be failing, because the workers then who are running the automatic tests would not be able to access. They would need to compete with you.
Okay.
Right? And the second reason would be to say, maybe prevent confusion, because maybe too many users then would say like, yeah, this is Tumbleweed, so I'm adding these repos, and then they're frustrated because first it's slow and second it's broken all over. because it's a product in testing and not a stable one, right? But to show you what openQA does, and this is basically what you can do yourself. So here you can see on that page where we have the official repositories which come with the installation, and these include the latest released and installable packages. And for testing purposes, of course, we want the ones that are on openQA, which are part of that snapshot. So yeah, you can do the same, and then I think what Zipper does, it doesn't browse the page as you would do with a manual access over the browser, but Zipper reads the metadata in the repository which is accessible, and from that repository it can then know which files to access. Okay.
So does it mean the machine inside the O3 info network can access the link over PXE?
Any machine can access this repository, also outside the network. Okay. It's just that if you open the page, the URL that you gave, it doesn't show anything in the browser, but
Yeah.
Zipper can still read from it.
Oh. So the link can be added in the PXE server?
Yes. Well, I don't know what the PXE server would read. Normally, I would assume that the PXE server reads the kernel and initrd, and they are also directly accessible by path. So yes, that should work.
Okay. I will try.
All right. Felix, you asked about Leap, right?
Yep.
So basically, in Leap, we also have images, and we have then a TTM instance. And where was it? SLE staging. There is TTM Leap 15.3. So different perimeter for the very same piece of software. Scripts to test manager, OpenSUSE Leap 15.3. And then it says 163 already publishing. So it looks again at openQA. In that case, it looks on Leap 15. And we find the very same. It's also the two test manager that took a look at the build, and it's deciding that this is published. And because, the certificate was likely lost because some tests were retriggered and then failed, but in principle, the same approach is taken there, that in individual tests are reviewed. It may be that in all these cases, because for the final set of Leap, there's not so much point to track transient issues in bugs when there won't be a subsequent build anyway anymore. So this is why their manual TTM ignores in here, which is a bit unfortunate. I would prefer to, because I'm not aware of any bug or ticket regarding Chromium instability. So I would like that this is handled in a way that people are really looking for stable tests, which would mean we would need at least a progress ticket. But in principle, the process is much more aligned there. So for Leap, basically the same as for Tumbleweed. Okay.
So what's the goal of this test to be run if failures are just blindly marked as ignored?
They're not blindly marked as ignored. I trust that Max Lin is really having good experience with what these things mean. And then, I mean, I'm assuming here that for Chromium, his decision was that to say like, yeah, okay, we know that KDE on AH64 in that specific scenario might suffer from performance problems, which are not fixable in that way. That's just how it is. And the same for the system performance scenario, what the name already says, the same as in a scenario where we upgrade from an older system, because an upgrade is also always putting a bit more load on the system. And this might explain why Chromium fails here, which is not really a critical product issue, because I assume also that we can see that Chromium I mean, it's like not seg faulting on start. You can see here it is trying to start and it's just not ready at the time when the timeout was done. So there's potential for fixing it. As I said, I would prefer that this would be taken seriously and we fix the testability, but I can also understand that, you know, it's not perfect. So if Maxlin would file a ticket about Chromium, let's be honest, when would one of you guys look into that? Probably take some time as well. So certainly not in time to be fixed for Leap 15.3 for that build, right?
Yeah. I can actually give some background to that Chromium failure.
Okay.
We see that every once in a while, usually when openQA is busy syncing some large snapshots, because it just times out on network access.
Yeah.
But this test then runs like 2 hours and re-triggering it for something which you know basically was a network access, because all the other tests past Chromium is sort of considered wasted time.
Yep.
There's not really a bug in the product because it works. There's also not really an issue with the test because under normal conditions when the network would not be saturated, it also works. And the network saturation is nothing we can control from the test itself.
Yep. I still consider it a test issue because the test should show does Chromium work or not. And as you're confirming, you assume that Chromium does work. So then for me, the simple conclusion is if Chromium does work, then the test shouldn't fail. And as
that would be the nicest thing, of course.
Yeah, and as you rightly said,
Chromium works is basically you can test all the other tests where Chromium passed. It's been tested like 50 times throughout the whole snapshot.
Exactly. It's not like Chromium would fail in every scenario. If it would, then likely that would be a very strong indication for you that something is broken, right?
Indeed, yes.
Right. Yeah, the point what I want to make is what I do like about that process is that it's much more near the pain that Dimster feels is much more near to motivating people to fix the test and the product. And because we need to convince the bot that something is releasable. And that only works by applying a diligent process, because, you know, a bot is a bot. It's not like a human that can be convinced, like forced to do something that easily, because the bot sticks to the process. Of course, there are always exceptions, and this is good to allow exceptions. When some unexpected problems happen, then there shouldn't be a need to, let's say, delay a snapshot artificially for a reason which is clearly not something that's critical. Okay, so thank you all for attendance. If you're interested to hear more about that, I think you know where to find the guys. And as an outlook for the next workshop topics that we can cover is that in the next weeks we haven't yet set up a topic, but some things that we plan to walk over is an intro to OS order inst development, so the lower level backend of openQA, how to get better feedback when we share new openQA features, workflow discussions about SUSE QE aggregate tests, as well as some other proposals which we will follow up in the time afterwards. Thank you all and goodbye.